Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. And today we are going to get into, well, kind of a little briefing on dating apps and how the difference between how men use them versus the way women use them. So let's just jump straight into it. So, obviously, in today's age, a lot of people, when it comes to the dating world and the dating market, unlike, say, maybe 20, 25 years ago, where, because for the most part, you could probably say about the year 2000 is when like that line kind of came into play from the internet becoming like more of a thing versus less of a thing where it existed before that. But generally speaking, we're gonna use that as that line. And so roughly about 25 years ago, it was a different layout of things because during that time it was almost it was a new thing, so it was kind of more frowned upon when people did more online dating. And obviously, you didn't really have apps. Apps weren't a thing at that time because during that time you didn't have smartphones like that. So, of course, there were no apps. So it was all about websites, and obviously, you had to be more of a stay-home person for that to be a thing. Whereas, fast forward in today's age, everybody is online in some capacity because you have your phone with you all the time. Obviously with the invention of the smartphone getting to the point that it is today, it's just a different ball game. So we're just putting that out there just to start off. Internet from what it was back then, especially in the dating market, is definitely different than what it is today because now it's more common. So it definitely changes the dynamic in the way people use it. As one major thing, as I mentioned before, back then it was kind of a little bit more like frowned upon because it was like, okay, like most people were doing the whole nightlife or whatever the case is, and people were a little bit more social uh, outside, like when they're out and about, they're more social. Um, and now people have become more social online versus outside, so and in person. So with that change of dynamic, you now have a new, more updated way in the way people use dating apps for dating. So it used to be a little bit more where it was women and men would use dating apps. Women might be a little bit more cautious because they were a little bit unfamiliar because you had some guys who used it more in a predatory way, but you had some guys, a lot of guys who just used it as, okay, it's not easy to always go talk to women. It's easier to get my personality across first before having to be flashy or this and that. I could do that. Women, on the other hand, like I said, were a little bit more apprehensive, but some of them still were receptive. It was a new space. Now everyone's familiar with it in a way where it's no longer considered unknown. So with that in mind, here's how kind of it lays out now in terms of the dynamics of things. So men will often use it. There's two aspects of men. Men will often use it as one, you have your your guys who are just trying to look to have fast fun, which for the most part, it's almost like a waste in that you can't just openly say, I'm trying to have fast fun. So the guys who are trying to do that, they end up having to try to be more deceptive about it because we're at a point in time where you can't just be like, hey, I'm looking to have fast fun. And that's just what happens. I mean, to a degree, you can, if you can pull that off, if you're attractive enough, if you specifically are on a dating app with the intention of I'm showboating the way I look, my accessories, whatnot, whatever the case is. Then you have the other type of guy who's genuinely looking for something serious and they're trying and they're sending out a bunch of messages and they're really not getting any kind of responses because the way that the dating apps work in modern times, you have this kind of imbalance where guys are hitting up women, but women aren't hitting up guys. So it's always like a bunch of guys hitting up women, hoping that they can break through that wall of I'm different than someone else while still trying to get past the fact that if you do get through that wall, are you going to be perceived as the person who's just trying to have fun? Or are you going to be perceived as the person who wants something more? then comes the factor of, does that woman that you're actually targeting, does she just want to have fun, or does she want something more? Because in that case, if you want something more and she's looking just for fun, you're not going to get anywhere right away. Now, and that's for the most part the way that the men are kind of using it, either one or the other. And I think the majority of men who are looking for something more serious are the ones who are on there, because most of the guys who are not looking for something serious and actually are confident and have charisma and have all that kind of, they're funny, they have all these kind of dominant traits that kind of put them out there up front and in the open, tend to not really use a lot of time on dating apps. And I mean dating apps specifically. I'm not referring to social media platforms like Instagram, Facebook, and all that stuff. That's like just you're showing yourself off. If you're showing your brand off, because that's different. You're not. If you have a guy who is very like alpha traits and he's doing that, he's not doing that for the purpose of dating. He's doing that for the purpose of brand image and selling himself, which is more related to business and networking than it is dating. So I'm talking specifically on dating apps. Now, um, that's pretty much the layout of like the type of guys you're gonna have who are utilizing that for that purpose. You have like I said, most guys who are like that alpha type. I think I like lost with my words for a moment. The guys who are like the alpha type, they generally speaking are not going to be on dating apps like that, really for that purpose, because they're going to be too much out and about, out in person. They're having success, so they're not really going to be doing that. So what you're kind of really left with is a lot of the guys who are just trying to look, who are less confident, trying to hope to get some fun, and then guys who are regular average, whether that's within their confidence range or whether that's, just regular average Joe, whatever it is, and they are trying to just find some long term. Nothing wrong with that. And that's how men generally use it. Now, women, on the other hand, for dating apps, what you find is you probably have about three types of women, generally speaking, who's using the apps. You have the average woman, or when I say average, I don't mean the average in terms of numbers. I mean average in terms of just status in the kind of person that you are. Average in the sense that you, generally speaking, will say, you know what, I'm just looking to find something long term. I want to find that person. You have that kind of person, and then you have the person who is just there for attention. They're not planning to get to know anybody really, unless the person is like a super standout person. Which, like I said, those kind of alpha guys who are super attractive, super charismatic, super confident, super funny, all those kind of things, generally speaking, are not on dating apps like that. Some of them are, but not very heavy. So the girls who will give into that, they probably aren't going to find it that much, but every now and then. But and I mean as a widespread, meaning like if that type of guy chooses someone, he'll probably get what he wants. But in the grand scheme of the other hundreds of thousand women on there, they're not going to come across that guy just off the numbers alone. So, but generally speaking, that type of woman who's just looking for attention, she's not going to really care to like, she's just there for the attention from whoever she can get it from, and the validation. They're not necessarily looking for anything to come out of the dating app. Then you have last, there's a lot of women who's actually on there for, um, I want to say this in a nice way, but they're there for an exchange of favors. They're looking to exchange physical pleasure for money. Whether that is, they're looking for the sugar daddy, whether they're the gold digger, or whether they're straight up just saying like, I'm looking for an exchange of money, like you pay me money and we can have a good time. So you have that, and all three of those, I'm putting those in the same category that I just said there about the different dynamics of wanting to get money. Now, what's happened in recent years when it comes to the dating market now in the dating apps, because as I said before, the modern world now, technology and dating online is now such a common thing. The ones who are after money are essentially people who are like, I'm not ready yet to transfer over to something, excuse me, like OnlyFans or something that's very like, unacceptable publicly. So this is like the first step before that. They're trying to like sucker people into that or kind of have this lifestyle where I just want people to give me money and that's it. Some of them don't even want to actually meet anyone. They just want to talk a lot on the app, maybe exchange phone numbers, and then hope to get your credit card without even actually having to meet you. I don't really know the extent of how all that stuff goes, but I'm sure that there's examples of that where you have those different levels of how far do they actually go to actually meet you before they're trying to get the money. Is it just, I want to speak to you on the phone and you give me money and buy me things? Or is it like, I'm going to actually meet up with you, you take me on dates, spend money on me? Or like we get to that point where, you know, go on dates for a few, I'm kind of dating you, but spend money on me. Whatever the dynamic is, you have that whole group. And there's actually a lot of people like that on dating apps now. I'm sure a lot of the men can attest to it because it's actually a flooded market when it comes to that. Now, just as large is the percentage that's just looking for attention. Um, it's not that they aren't normal in the aspect of they're not looking just for like money or this and that, but they either don't take it seriously or because they know they get such a flood of attention from guys messaging them, because generally speaking, they don't message guys. It's a viable source of baseless attention just to get it. So, like, if you're a guy and you could say, I can go to a place where I get a bunch of attention that validates me, and that's all it is, and I know I can actually have them at any time. The difference is this: it wouldn't be the same for a guy because guys work differently. It wouldn't be the same just say I can get that attention. You have to know you can have them. And when you have an abundance, now you don't care. A person who has access to like gallons and gallons of water is gonna say, I don't mind just taking a sip of like a bottle of water every now and then because I already know I have gallons. If you're in the desert and all you got is like one bottle of water, you're gonna probably chug it because you're like, I'm super thirsty. And you hope that you'll find another bottle of water whenever that time comes. So that changes the dynamic on how people react. So for women, there is a lot of them who and where they are just looking for that attention, knowing that it's there, and just being on the apps to receive all that validation. And essentially, those types they will be very reluctant to ever want to exchange numbers. They'll often probably make excuses on why they can't exchange numbers, like, oh, I don't feel safe or I don't like to do that right away, which essentially is not true because, like I said, we are in the age of the digital world now. So it's so common, whereas 25 years ago, that would have been a valid excuse. Nowadays, everybody is online. Everyone you walk in the street and see someone on the street and, maybe you start talking to them and you get to know them, you get their number, they're an online person. Just because you didn't meet them that way doesn't change the fact that they're not an online person. They are an online person. So that concept is going out the wind. But these are common excuses used to just continue to get the attention from people. Maybe some people are the type who that validation comes not just from people saying that they're pretty or this and that. Some people look for it in the way of, I want a pen pal to keep talking to. So when I'm bored and I'm out and you see people who are sitting at a coffee shop, maybe they're going about something and they always have their phone. So when they're alone, it looks like they're busy because people are hitting them up. Sometimes they'll use the dating apps for that, to have somebody that they can always talk to. So they look like they're busy or have that constant contact of someone reaching out to them, especially the women who are less confident of themselves. That makes them feel confident to say, I've got a pool of people who are always trying to talk to me. And that actually takes up a lot of the space on the dating apps. Then that last category I mentioned before, the actual normal average girls who are actually really there for something. And that portion actually, I'm not going to say is a super small portion, but it gets drowned out by the other two categories that I just mentioned so much that it is very rare. So it actually hinders those women in terms of trying to find something actually relevant because they're now competing with all the other two groups of women that take up all of the space, which as a reaction, a lot of men who go after those other type of women, maybe not purposely, it's just what they come across. It creates a dynamic where a lot of those guys now are like, why am I trying? So like the bad aspect of the dating app world, like I said, is the women who just want attention, the women who want money, and then the men who are just looking to have quick fun. Both of those bad aspects of from the men or the women cloud up so much of the dating app area that the actual average Joe men and average Joe women uh, are are kind of on the bottom, and then they kind of get like diluted to a point where it's so hard for them to actually make sense of it all and actually gain something from it that's like of any benefit, especially when the average ones of the girls and the guys are actually being preyed on by the other bad guys and bad girls of the apps. So it definitely takes a toll. And that's essentially the breakdown of what dating apps look like today and age, in this modern time for dating apps. And put your comments down below if whatever your experiences have been like, if it relates to that, if it's different, chime that in as well, because I'd love to hear from all types of sources on how they feel that it is, if the breakdown I gave is accurate, if there are more aspects to it, because then maybe I can do an update video to say and incorporate those other aspects that you guys may have encountered. But like I said, as always, just put that down below and comment, like, share, subscribe. This channel is always here for positivity and helping everybody and just giving some insight. So as always, you guys take care and be safe. And I'll catch you guys in the next video.